This is part one of the series of videos Catch and Pass. And in this part, we'll be looking at the catch. Now, why do we need to practice the catch? That's super easy, isn't it? It should be, but there's a few things about it. Number one is we don't always make it look easy, do we? So always worth practicing for that sake. Number two is that when we attack in rugby, it's about creating space and then using space. How we catch the ball can help us doing that. So it is, again, worth practicing. And the last one is I want us to raise our standards of catching. One of my favourite coaching expressions is there's no such thing as a bad pass, only a bad catch. What that means is I don't care how the ball comes to you, whether it comes nicely in front of you, whether it's high, whether it's low, whether it's from a pass, whether from its kick, whether it's from a knock-on. Our standard should be that we always catch it. This might be the best chance we get to score in a game. If you're a winger, it might be the only chance you get of having the ball in the game. So our standard is no excuse for not catching it. What does a good catch look like then? And there's two main areas we need to look at here. Firstly, we need to look at our upper body. Secondly, we then need to look at our lower body because that's probably the most important bit in making sure we can catch in such a way that we are creating and keeping space. So let's start with the upper body. And we've got to the stage now, people, where you should have a rugby ball. For catching and passing, this is the best thing to practice with. You could use a toilet roll, you could use a cushion, you could use whatever, but Decathlon's open now. No excuses. Get hold of a rugby ball, please. Second piece of essential equipment is a doorway. Why? This is brilliant in making sure your lower body does what your lower body is meant to be doing. So what does our good catch look like? Starting with our upper body. First two things to think about. Number one, we grab the ball. None of this taking the ball in here. We grab it. That's number one. Number two is we get our hands high. By that, I don't mean high here, exposing the rib cage for the tackler. What I mean is we get it so that we can then use our eyes. We bring our eyes into play. Up here so that everything's in our line of vision. We can see the ball and the opposition. Why are these two things so important? What we're trying to do once we've caught the ball is we're trying to make ourselves into what's called a triple threat. What I mean by that is if I grab the ball and got it into my line of vision and I'm holding it, bringing it back into my centre, the opposition doesn't know if I'm going to run with the ball, if I'm going to pass it, or if I'm going to kick it. I'm a triple threat. So grab the ball, getting it, our hands nice and high so your eyes are into play. And the last thing I call doors, not walls. Don't have your arms out straight, everything hard, because that's going to mean that there's more likely to bounce off. Elbows bent, wrists relaxed, fingers pointing up but relaxed. Doors, not walls, everything relaxed. And we always bring the ball back into the centre at the end so we can be that triple threat. So as a recap of our upper body, grab the ball, keep your hands high so your eyes come into play, doors, not walls. What's our lower body doing? Well, our lower body, we're going to keep our hips square. By that, I mean running across the pitch parallel to the try line. That means that you're not getting the opposition to move out into that lovely space you've got there. You're keeping the opposition fixed. And the same as that, number two, is we're keeping our feet pointing forwards. And that's why a door is so useful. You can check you're doing that. Square hips, feet pointing forward, and the movement side to side comes from rotating your upper body, not from moving your lower body. Great, that's our checklist, so when you're practicing, you can see if you're doing all these things. How can we practice? Well, the first one is nice and easy. Get in your doorway. If your feet are pointing through the door, if your hips are parallel to the door, then you're doing the right things with your lower body. And start by just throwing the ball up and grabbing it, using your checklist to make sure you're doing the things you should be doing. Especially if you're new to the game, there is nothing like just holding on and throwing a rugby ball to yourself. It makes everything feel a bit more natural after a while because a rugby ball is not a usual shape. Once you've got control of that, set a timer, maybe 30 seconds. How many can you do? Now, can you see that my feet are staying planted? I'm moving my upper body, and I'm trying to go quicker and quicker and quicker. And again, see how many you can do in 30 seconds, see how fast you can get that. To then take on the challenge a bit more, do some passes low, do some passes low, some passes high. Because, well, there is no such thing as a bad pass, only a bad catch. Of course, the ball doesn't always come at you as it should do. That's the basic one. How can you make this more complicated? I think there's 3 things you can try here to practice and make this harder. Number 1 is keep your eyes shut as you throw it. It's a little bit more of a surprise then when you can catch it. Number 2, practice taking some high ones above your head. Make sure the ball goes out of your line of vision, so you have to put your hands in the right place. You're kind of guessing where the ball goes. Try taking low ones, and the key thing is here is you drop the ball, but you're not allowed to move your hands till the ball gets to your waist. You will be tempted to try and grab the ball early. No, try and see how low down you can get the ball. And again, move it side to side. Now you'll see that my feet are moving here while I practice this. Of course they are, that's only natural, and far better to catch the ball than not to catch the ball. So of course you can move your feet if you have to, but make sure that once you've caught the ball, you're getting your feet back pointing forward, your hips square, the ball in that triple threat position. And then the final way you can practice it, and I quite like this one, it uses our doorpost, in particular the corner. Just throwing the ball at there. And again, how you throw the ball, point, flat, will have the ball going at different ways. I quite like this one. Nothing will be as good as taking a fast pass off a friend and practicing catching that way. But this is as near as we can get to doing it at home. So remember, catching, it might seem really easy, but actually it is super important. And if something is super important, isn't it worth practicing? The more you practice, the more comfortable you'll get, because our new standard now is that we catch everything. There's no, unlucky there, unlucky. God, that was a tough pass. I'm not surprised you dropped it. Come on, we catch everything. We have high standards now. Let's live up to them. See you in part 2 for the pass.